Welcome to today's episode of Dungeon Master Deep Dive. For this episode, we're joined by Jared, who plays the Eladrin Ranger, Kuolias Presgolyn. I'll be asking him some general questions about the campaign and his character, and then we'll switch in the middle of the interview to a talk with Kuolias. Okay, let's knock the arrow, draw back, and aim right for this interview. Welcome, Jared. To start, thanks so much for being here for this brief interview.
It's a pleasure.
My first question for you, as I ask everyone, what is your experience with D&D or TTRPGs, and how long have you been playing / what sparked your interest in the game?
Pretty much I have zero experience. This is my first campaign. I joined back in January, and it's pretty much all my experience so far.
Cool. And what sparked you to get involved in that?
Well, so I've always wanted to play D&D, but I never had friends that were interested in it, and I couldn't find a party. And so then I had Mason in one of my classes, and he talked about D&D, and it was super cool, and invited me to come play, and so I said yes.
Cool. Can you tell me what you enjoy playing most about Kuolias?
I enjoy most interacting with my fellow party members, and just having fun with them, and learning about them as a person and as a character.
Cool. Next question for you. What has been the biggest development you've seen so far with your character?
Probably the biggest development is learning how to interact with the party, especially since I'm a new player. So as he's learning, I'm also, or as I'm learning, he's also learning too. So that's probably the biggest development.
Cool. So where do you think Kuolias is headed in the future?
Hopefully he is headed to reconcile with his past, and especially with him being an outcast from Esme, as well as being an outlaw in Pupillisu. And hopefully he can reconcile that, as well as become closer with his party, and just go on lots of adventures and stuff.
Great, those are awesome aspirations. Thanks for answering all those questions, Jared. I'm now going to have you get into character as Kuolias for another quick chat.
Okay.
Thank you, Kuolias, for also joining us today. I want to start by asking you to elaborate on your bond between you and your wonderful party favorite badger, Francis.
Well, Francis is kind of like my son. I met him when he was really young, and I found him with his mother, who was tragically passed on. But I kind of took him under my wing and raised him as like my own son. And whenever he gets hurt in battle, I have a deep emotional response to that, because he's like my own son.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys have that tie together. As a person who secretly fled from one country to another, can you talk about what life was like during that transition?
Well, during that transition, it was really tough for me, especially with getting kicked out by the king of Esme, which is pretty much the worst management you can have. And for a while, I wandered through the um, the the
Wastelands.
the wastelands, and I finally came upon this family of dwarves that lived in the mountains. And normally, dwarves and elves don't really get along, and so I came to them practically begging for help. And I was starving, runaway, and shabby clothes. And luckily, they could look past their biasness and take me in, and just provide a home for me, as well as teaching me how to survive on my own and how to live up in the mountains.
That's great. Now that you're no longer in total hiding and that you're adventuring with an adventuring party, how would you describe how life has changed for you?
It's changed quite a bit, especially with going from being in the mountains alone for 100 years, and just all of a sudden now having almost a quasi family with being in a party. It's been a really big development with learning how to interact with others, and how to help out, and also how to take help from them too. So
Moving on and kind of adding on to that response, what would you say your favorite part about being a member of the Glorious Bastards is?
my favorite part is probably just that quasi family, as I just mentioned, and just being a part of something, especially with having uh, being an outcast from both countries. I don't really have a place, and so being in the party is like is my way of trying to find my purpose. And yeah.
Awesome. Glad you really fit in with them. Kuolias, can you talk about what your main goals are?
My main goals are to eventually reconcile with my family and Esme, and to eventually find my place again in this big world, and to also go on adventures where I help others and help out my party, and just grow as a character or as a person.
Yeah, definitely very pure-hearted, that response. Lastly, can you please describe what your outlook is on your future as an individual and as a group?
My future as an individual, I want to grow with my people skills, especially with living in the mountains. They're very rusty. I want to be able to become like a man with great honor uh, and just help others. And with the party, I want to be able to help them in the best way possible, as well as just go on all of our adventures.
Great. All right, thank you, Kuolias, for joining us. I'll let you get back to sharpening those arrow tips and improving that already great aim. And thank you, Jared, for also joining us today. I'm excited to see where Kuolias and his pal Francis are headed for the remainder of our campaign, both on their own and with our group.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course. But for now, that's all for today's episode of Dungeon Master Deep Dive. We'll see you around.